There are a lot of words that I would use to describe Michigan quarterback, freshman phenom, former number one overall recruit, Bryce Underwood. Some of those are the words that I just used. I describe him as athletic. Phenom is one that I already used. But one of the words that we've heard some of the Michigan players, specifically on defense, describe Bryce Underwood is they're not exactly what I would have anticipated. The one word in particular that stands out is mature. Let's talk about what they had to say right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And what time is it? It's 3:36. So about 2 hours ago, I was in Ann Arbor and we got to hear from three defensive players from Michigan. And I was kind of surprised at some of the ways that we heard some of the defensive players describe Bryce Underwood. Now we've already heard a lot about from like Rayshawn Benny about, hey, we don't touch Bryce. Also like the slumping of the shoulders when it came to trying to keep him contained in the pocket. We've heard about his speed, his ability to get outside, his running acumen, the pinpoint accuracy, all of those different attributes that we have been able to use to talk about Bryce. But the one thing that surprised me is one of the words that was used, and it was maturity. Let's pull up the quote. I don't have the right quote here, as I thought I did. But Dom Nichols, it was actually Mason Curtis that said this. He said, "I've seen some impressive throws. He's very mature for his age. It's just good competition." And asked, why is he mature? What does that look like? He said, really not putting the ball in harm's way. He goes through his progressions well. He's a really mature quarterback. We heard some other things from Dom Nichols. We heard some things from Jimmy Rolder. He's an athlete, Dom Nichols said. He's good at what he does. He's just going to keep getting better. I've seen good things out of him. He's still young. So, maturity plus young. I can't talk about his progressions because I don't know nothing about that, but he'll stay in the pocket and throw that ball when we're coming at him. So that's a good thing to see. That's another element of maturity. Now I want to get to Jimmy Rolder's comments and we'll talk about all of it. He's a great athlete. It's good seeing him run around, make plays, extend plays, get out of the pocket. So moving around well. Man of a few words, Jimmy Rolder. That Jimmy Rolder. Okay. So you've got a couple things here. Number one, the fact that it sounds like understanding that Bryce Underwood, as Rayshawn Benny said, we don't touch Bryce. He's standing in the pocket knowing he's not going to get hit. So there's that. But at the same time, he knows that he's about to get hit. He's just not going to get hit. And he's standing in the pocket according to what Dom Nichols says. Now, that's got to translate to actual games, actually getting hit by players that are, let's just be honest, much bigger, stronger, faster than the ones he faced while at Belleville. So that's going to play a little bit of a difference. So you have that aspect. So it'll be interesting to just see how he's able to do that. But obviously the most important thing is getting to the Mason Curtis comment about the maturity. What I really want to hone in on, because again, he said he goes through his progressions well. So obviously an edge rusher is not going to know about that. But Mason Curtis being a defensive back, he's cross training. We'll get into this in segment 3, I think. Mason Curtis cross training between safety and nickel. So he's definitely getting the range of being able to determine what a quarterback is doing in terms of, are they locking on their first read? Are they actually doing that, going through their progressions? He actually would know that. But the fact that he said, not just that he's making impressive throws, it's that he's not putting the ball in harm's way. Now, part of that obviously can be the pinpoint accuracy that we've heard about. But just as importantly, we'd only heard, I think it was this time last week, he had only thrown 2 interceptions so far in practice. Now, you might look at it and say, well, that's not great that he threw 2 interceptions. But quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. I've said that time and time again. Tom Brady threw interceptions, right? Every quarterback is going to do it. But he had only thrown 2 to that point. One of them to Max Reyes. I can't remember who the other one was to. So he's not putting the ball in harm's way. That is a big change and a big difference than even what I had heard about JJ McCarthy. Now, keeping in mind, JJ McCarthy going into the 2022 season hadn't practiced all spring, but the intel that I had gotten, as close to verbatim as I had from my source inside the building at the time, was JJ will make that superstar play, that play that just makes your jaw drop. Okay, we're not verbatim. I'm just kind of riffing here. But he'll make that play that makes your jaw drop, basically. One play, but then the very next play, he'll make your jaw drop in a different way. You'll sit there and look and say, well, why did he even decide to go there? What was that? It's a big reason why I was projecting at that time, very erroneously. I'll take the mea culpa here. If you go back to the 2022 preseason, I was predicting Cade McNamara would retain the starting position because conversely, we were told by people inside the building that he might not be making the wow plays, but he was making the consistent plays. And we know what Jim Harbaugh, who was obviously the coach at the time, what he prioritized, right, is just sustaining drives, not turning the ball over. JJ wasn't necessarily doing that. Now, it sounds like Bryce is doing that. That Bryce absolutely, he's going through the progressions. That's already a smart thing because you didn't even see that much from any of the quarterbacks that Michigan had last year. Even Jack Tuttle had moments where it just felt like he locked onto receivers. Certainly Alex Orji, they didn't really ask him to run through progressions, but he was doing it occasionally when they would ask him to. And Davis Warren would sometimes run through progressions, and sometimes his running through progressions was not even the smartest thing that we saw. I'm not trying to impugn him. I'm just saying there were times where you'd see him go through his progressions and then just make the absolute wrong read. So the fact that you have a guy who's a first-year player, has not taken a college snap yet, hasn't been in Michigan Stadium wearing the uniform with fans in the stands yet, meaning he hasn't even played in a spring game, and he's out there able to do this type of thing already against the number one defense that Michigan has. That's already impressive. And then you think the fact that, hey, he's elusive and he's fast. We've heard a lot about him running. Okay, so maybe that's going to be a big part of it. He's extending plays. Big thing that J.J. McCarthy did that we all loved. And then he's also able to stand in there and deliver strikes even when the pressure is coming. Now, you wonder with that, is he going to take sacks when he needs to take sacks? We don't know. But really positive things so far, as you would expect about Bryce Underwood. And that's very, very exciting that is kind of the world that we're living in, knowing that he's probably, like I said, I said this on Thursday, my prediction of him being the starting quarterback has risen dramatically. So I'm curious to see what that's going to look like. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, in segment 2, Dom Nichols he was asked about being a recruit, going and visiting spring practices for teams. This would have been 2 years ago for him because he was an early enrollee. And I thought that some of the things he said were really important to the Michigan culture. So let's talk about that here in just a moment. But before we do, life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. You can get $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day, so protecting your loved ones doesn't have to break the bank. Fabric also offers free digital wills and access to investment accounts to help you plan for your children's future. So join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment, but baseball season is in full swing. Opening day down at Comerica Park today. Heading down to see the lovely Danielle Weiss and Canada Mike. And maybe I'll say hi to Chris Ballas. We'll see. Anyway, there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2-player projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, PrizePicks keeps every game exciting. This week I'm picking Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run, which is smart given the trajectory he's on, and Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. It's that easy. Setting up a lineup takes less than 60 seconds, and when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. I always take advantage of Taco Tuesday, where PrizePicks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, really interesting stuff coming out of today's media availability in general. Even though, like, two of the guys that we talked to, not that talkative. So, really some interesting stuff, though. And one of the more interesting things was because when you walk in, you see, all the recruiting badges, especially on a Friday. Guys are arriving. I saw Leo Delaney in the building. There was another high-end recruit whose name I recognize his name. I couldn't think of it. I couldn't recall it at the moment. But, there's just, you see all the name tags, you see names that if you follow any recruiting, and it's like, okay, they're really going. They were marching guys around. Saw Sam Popper doing the rounds with a bunch of guys, showing them the facilities and everything. There's a sign up now that says absolutely no red or green beyond this point, right? They're serious about this. There's that. But Dom Nichols obviously was in this position 2 years ago. He was a guy who committed relatively early in the process, ended up enrolling early, so he was part of spring ball last year. But he was asked about just seeing this level of just constant recruiting, because it is pretty constant now. But it's just like, what do you see when you go to these schools and you're looking at spring ball, practice and trying to decipher whatever. And he said there were really two schools that stood apart for him when he was looking for his prospective school. Keep in mind, this was 2023. So you had, a team that ended up winning the national championship in Michigan. And that was one of the two. Obviously, he ended up at Michigan, so it's no surprise that spring ball really stood out. But also the other one was one that was the preseason favorite, didn't make the playoff thanks to the SEC championship game, and that's Georgia. So here's what Dom Nichols had to say. Said, I visit a lot of schools during my recruiting process. I remember comparing this spring ball because I was here when I was recruit their spring ball and comparing it to Georgia's. Obviously, Georgia at the time was also one of the best teams in the country, but this place is just different. It's just how they go about things. I mean, we're trained soldiers. Kind of falls in line with, if you watched any of Connor's 2 interviews this past week, talking about just like the attention to detail. Says, this is what it feels like. We're going at it every day how we should, and I mean just building to win every game this season. So those are the two schools that stood apart. So what made them stand apart and what made Michigan stand apart above even Georgia? He said physicality. That was the biggest thing. It's not normal to go somewhere to see the Beat Ohio drill, sirens going off, dudes getting ready to hit for 3 hours. Most schools just don't do that. They're trying to save guys. You can say we're trying to save guys, but we got time to get healthy. We can go ahead and bang, and bang in the spring, and that's how it should be. One more quote from him, and then we'll talk about it. Said, I think asked about what, where does this spring stand out compared to last year? And he said, well, I think this spring's more intense. So we were going through some coaching changes last spring, and obviously for me, it's going to be a little more intense because I came here as an early enrollee last year, so still getting used to the whole process. But yeah, this spring is definitely like we're ready to go. We're ready to play football. You got to love that, especially because this is one of the reasons why I feel like Michigan is being undervalued. Right. I know we keep on hearkening back to the Tom Fornelli article. This is why I feel like Michigan's being undervalued. And I understand, spring hype is a paper tiger in a lot of ways. That's why I also tell you, like, when people say, what are we looking for in the spring game? I mean, the 2023 spring game was underwhelming. JJ was okay. Like, he started kind of poorly, and then I think he went 9 for 10 after that. But, it wasn't like anything to write home about. But at the same time, this is when the teams are kind of forged, is spring ball. You don't have your whole team there yet, right? Because you're still waiting on, future transfers. You might lose some guys to the transfer portal. You're still going to bring in your recruiting class, but it's pretty close, right? And but I think that the fact that Michigan is being physical this way is a really important thing to note. And it's just, again, it feels like the culture, it feels like everyone's on the same page. Everyone's looking towards the same goal. There's not a lot of individualism in the locker room. I mean, there is. Dom Nichols himself is just like, he comes out like a shining star, man. This is our first time talking to him. And he just comes out and you're just like, number one, he's got a big booming voice, like makes your audio meter on your camera peak very quickly. You don't change the settings and it's just like, bam. But, he's outspoken. He's got a lot of stuff to say. He swore a bunch in the interview today. And it's like he was talking about whooping Ohio State's you-know-what last year. Like he's got some stuff to say. He's ready to go. But outside of a couple, right? Like this is one of the things that we talked about when it came to the 2021 through 23 teams. Not a lot of big personalities. A lot of your fan favorites were not guys with big personalities, which differed greatly from the teams that you saw in the early Jim Harbaugh era. Because obviously you're all going to look at, and rightfully so, Blake Corum as being one of the great Michigan men of all time. You're going to look at Mikey Sainristil and call him one of the great Michigan men of all time. You're going to look at J.J. McCarthy, who's kind of the actual exception to this rule, and say he's one of the great Michigan men of all time. But compared to the I love these guys, so don't take this wrong. But compared to the Chase Winoviches and the Jordan Lewises and the Drake Johnsons and the Chris Wormleys, and you could just go on down the line because you knew every single press conference that you were going to have from 2015 through 2019 was an adventure. Now, you had some guys that were a little bit quieter. Saw one of them today. It was Lavert Hill, right? Like Lavert didn't talk a lot. He kind of talked down the field. Big expressive player when it came to his play, but otherwise not so much. But like outside of that, like everyone, like you knew you were getting something probably crazy every press conference. Like you just sat there and waited to wonder like what is going to be the big takeaway from this press conference? Because someone was going to say something crazy. Even someone like Rashawn Gary, who was relatively quiet at first, it's like you knew he was going to say something that was going to be like, okay, this is the thing I got to get out within minutes of getting home. And you don't have that generally now. Now, Dom gave us a little bit of that today. With granted, I didn't even write on the Ohio State whooping stuff. But, you otherwise, you have a team that's all pulling in the same direction. It's kind of individualist, which is interesting because you have a lot of position groups that are positionless, right? Like you look at the offensive line and you've got all these different guys who can play multiple roles. You look at the defense and like we're going to talk about Mason Curtis playing safety and nickel. You've got Jayshawn Barham, who again, I think he's technically always going to be a linebacker, but can be an edge rusher as well. You've got interior guys who can play outside. You got outside guys who can play inside. You got you could have a Zeke Berry go from a nickel to a corner. I know it's a similar role, but it's different, right? Like you've got guys who can drop into coverage from the line, all that kind of stuff. So it's everyone pulling towards the same goal, everyone understanding what the point is, and then you've got the fact that we're going to out physical you, and it starts now, right? Like if you are able to be physical now, as long as you're not worn out, and the defense is so deep that I can't imagine that they're going to be too worn out. They're just going to be that last man standing. That was a big difference in those 3 years of Big Ten titles, is that other teams just could not hang with Michigan for 4 quarters. There's a reason why you look at like Ohio State in 2022 and Ohio State comes out guns a-blazing, takes a nice little lead, not a huge lead, but a nice little lead. And then by the 4th quarter, Michigan's run the score up, right? So all of these things play in concert with each other. You've got everyone pulling in the same direction. You've got everyone paying attention to detail. You've got the physicality part. I mean, you got to love all parts of what was just said there in segment 2. So let's talk about the Mason Curtis thing, him potentially playing nickel. I think that's an interesting thing. So we'll get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, daylight saving stuck up on us again. And if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep and weeks later, I still am. 5 Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine, although it's not very sunny right now, means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late watching the NCAA tournament, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5 Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. For me, it's staying up way too late and talking to my mom on the phone and then watching TV. With longer days, I love getting outside and taking Zuri for a sunset hike, or really, that's it. Anyway, just getting her out the house. She loves that. Tropical Burst is my go-to for a quick boost. And whether I'm at a game or I'm traveling, 5-Hour Energy is easy to grab and it keeps me feeling refreshed. Head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Well, grab a 5-Hour Energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're absolutely everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, Mason Curtis, all 6'4" of him, right? Like he's an actual tall person. Revealed that today he's cross-training at nickel and safety. Also got some clarity. None of us knew that if Tez Metcalf was TJ Metcalf. So if you see a lot of people putting TJ Metcalf into the, like me, like, right, we did our depth chart prediction show earlier this week. We had TJ as that guy. It turns out Tez is actually Tevis, however you want to say it. But, and, you know, Zeke Berry said there's 6 guys that are all cross-training at nickel, and talking to a colleague of mine and not so confident that Mason Curtis is going to stick there. But I love the idea of having a big, tall guy there. As long as, I mean, granted, you got to be able to cover that guy and in the slot. Now he said, like, when you're going up against a Samaj, yeah, you got to jam him at the line. You can't, let them get a free release and everything, because if you're 6'4" and you're going up against like a 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" speedster, yeah, you got to make sure that you're being smart about what you do at the instant that the ball is snapped. But I love the idea, and again, it speaks to the positionlessness of this defense, that you're asking a guy who, at the time that he committed, he was the first commitment in last year's class, like way back when. He was a linebacker at that time. Now, a 6'4" linebacker already, like, that's already something that you look at and say, okay, that'll track. But even then, you would sit there and say, 6'4" linebacker likes to hit. Now, maybe let's bulk him up and make him an edge. But that's not what Michigan did. Michigan said, you know what, let's instead move him to safety, it's just odd. You normally don't see safeties that are this big, long, and rangy. Maybe you see a corner that's 6'2", maybe 6'3". Will Johnson's like 6'2", but not a safety, and definitely not usually a nickel. Now, what makes that interesting essentially is that would make it so that quarterbacks would have to really be very precise, because he's just got that length. You can't overthrow it. Now, granted, you're probably not trying to overthrow a slot receiver, right? Because they're not necessarily going to go up over the defensive back and get it. But it's a little bit of a different thing to have a Mikey Sanders still and then having a Mason Curtis, just simply from a length perspective. So I kind of love the idea. Now, what's the longevity there? I'm not sure. If I was to place a bet, is he's going to stick there? I don't know that he will or not. But I am intrigued by the idea, and it is interesting in and of itself. Last thing I want to mention is I want to talk about what Dom Nichols, again, he was a treasure trove, what he had to say about the offensive line, because obviously that's a position where we're keeping our like a hawk's eye on what the OL is doing. But he said that he mentioned a bunch of different guys, but he said, like, they're working well. It's a lot. It's good to see the O-line progressing this year. It's a lot different than last year. I'm pretty close with Sprague. He's been doing well. Andrew Babalola, it's good to see him coming along. He's a young guy. He's a little underweight, but he'll get that weight up. He's going to be just fine. I love that he's just speaking. He's just he's spitting facts, man. That's kind of what I've been saying, even though it's funny because Babalola, I think, is like 300 pounds, and we're talking about him being underweight. I said Brady Norton, the transfer, he's good. He's got good feet. There's a couple more, but all those dudes are just working. They've been getting at it and getting better every day, just like I have. So, I mean, that's a positive thing to recognize that, hey, the offensive line It's better than it was this time last year, which you would expect given that it wasn't very good and ultimately last year. But you want to hear that they're getting after it. You combine that with the physicality thing. If Dom Nichols, who's a physical edge rusher, feels like he's getting the physical nature in practice, it's iron sharpens iron. By the way, for everyone who hates when we use Bible stuff on this show, just know that that's a biblical idiom. Iron sharpens iron. It's right out of Proverbs. But anyway, and football teams use all that. They love using biblical terms and idioms and metaphors all the time. But absolutely think that bodes well, and hopefully we'll see that's going to actually pay some dividends. We probably won't know that much until we get to the Oklahoma game in week 2. More so, I think once you get to Oklahoma will tell you something. They're in the SEC now, despite it. It's just a year removed from Big 12, so how much did they change? I'm not sure. But, it'll be interesting just to see how the offensive line is able to fare. We're not going to necessarily learn a ton from New Mexico. At least, hopefully, we don't. Not in a bad way, of course. But that's positive. That's good. All right, that's going to do it for us this week. We will be back next week, Monday. We will start off with press conference stuff because we were going to have some coaches Monday at noon. And we will progress from there. So anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again soon. Peace.